What's going on, guys? Welcome back. Still working on this 31, trying to get it completely sorted. I was looking around it last night after I signed off the last episode, and I actually found that I have a little bit of an oil leak from the turbo. I haven't yet figured out whether it's actually coming from the drain or whether it's coming from the feed on the top and dripping down, but it is just slowly dripping off that drain pipe. There's a little patch on the floor there from it. But good news is, car was up in the air all night and there's looks to be no oil coming from that sump plug. So that's all totally dry. So with any luck, that's sorted that for now. Until the next oil change, I'll try again for a different sump plug that might work. So as you saw last episode, got my new brakes and everything on. So we're getting there as far, obviously, and the new fan setup, as you can see under there. So it is getting there. We're getting to the point where hopefully the car's going to be reliable. So at the end of the last episode, I did sign off talking about this tail shaft issue that I've got with the center bearing. And I pretty much came to the conclusion that the reason it is so stupid and retarded is probably because of misalignment of my diff. But I had a chat to Dad about it last night after I signed the video off, and we've come up with a bit of an idea of somehow a way to at least hopefully make it better. It's an issue that's, I'm sure this isn't up all the way. It's up. So there should be a way that we can at least make it a bit better. So I pulled off the dust cover off the back of the center bearing because that is what was rattling. I was able to just cut through that with this pair of cutters and then just split it and take it off. So what I'm going to do is, I'll show you more when I actually take this bracket off, but anyone that's seen the rubber around the center bearing, it's like in a U shape, a horseshoe shape. So you got a piece that goes around the bearing, and then there's rubber that goes out and then back up, which actually is sandwiched in by this bracket around the center of the steel. So we've got here just a roll of sort of like just high density rubber. We just use this for like muffler mounts, that sort of thing, anywhere that's sort of needed. So my plan is to wrap this around between the two pieces of rubber to try and pretty much just firm up that bit of rubber in that center bearing as much as I can. Almost make it maybe like a solid bit of rubber. And hopefully that'll take that clunk out of it and hopefully help with that crap movement. So as the old man said, I got nothing to lose by trying to do it. So I may as well give it a go. Hopefully it might help me keep a center bearing for a bit longer. But aside from that, I'm just going to buy another center bearing and keep a spare with me all the time, just because I'm pretty sure this thing is just going to eat center bearings. It's just a side effect of having it so low. It is what it is. So I'm going to try that. It's worth trying. And yeah, then I've still got to do or sort out that oil leak from the turbo, and we've still got to do a full bolt check on the engine, and then try and sort out this turbo actuator. Try and get this thing running on 10 pound, because as much as I would like to keep it at 15, it's sort of playing with fire as far as the way that the motor was put together and the gearbox that I'm using and a few other things. 10 PSI is what it was built for. 10 PSI is going to be reliable, so I'd rather just wind it back to 10 and just learn how to drive it at 10, although it was a lot of fun at 15. But anyway, if I can't sort it out, I'll send it at 15 pounds if I have to, but I'd rather not, because I know it's going to start to hurt a lot of things in this car. So anyway, I'll pull this center bearing mount bracket off and start having a look at what I can do with this rubber. Alrighty, so this is sort of the bracket which holds the rubber in the tail shaft. It holds the tail shaft up, as you can see. And this is what I was talking about, the tail shaft rubber, how it's like a sort of like a U shape. You got the rubber on the bearing, and then it sort of does a bit of a U to the rubber on the outside, and that's where the bracket sort of holds the rubber. And obviously this rubber's not firm enough to keep it where it's meant to be. So this is what I was saying before, where I'm not sure if maybe this is the backwards. This might be meant to be the other way around. But although like I've moved the tail shaft in and out with it, and it doesn't seem to make any difference. So I'm not sure that it would actually help that much anyway. But what I figure is if I pack in between these two with that hard rubber and almost make it almost like a solid block, it should keep that a lot more centered and stop it from riding around that mount, which I think is what is making that noise when I take off. So that's pretty much my plan. All I've got to do, I just got to try and figure out a way to actually secure it inside there. Super glue is really good for rubber. silly as that sounds, it's very true. Super glue, even if you got like split rack boots or anything like that, use super glue to glue them back up. You won't have any issues. It's really good stuff for rubber. So I'm thinking about maybe trying to super glue it in there, so I can fold that, sort of push that back, wrap it up in there, pull that back over the top, and then put that mount back on, and hopefully that should sort it out pretty well. But anyway, I'll see what I can come up with, and I'll let you guys know. Alrighty, so just checked, I'm actually all out of super glue. So this is what I've done. Pretty ghetto, but as long as it works. So you can see here I've got 2 wraps of that in there, so that's pretty much just like a solid block of rubber now. So I'll put that to the top because that's where it's not sort of sitting on it. And I've just put a zip tie around the two wraps, done it up nice and tight, keep them in there. So that should hopefully, I don't think those should go anywhere, that should be fine. So I'll whack this mount back on, we'll see how it looks. But yeah, that's pretty much the way that is there, is like a solid piece of rubber pretty much, like a solid rubber block. And it's like sort of fairly centered there, so it's good. Righto, so managed to get up in there and tighten all the return fittings on the turbo. They all are a little bit loose, although I'm still pretty sure that that leak is coming from the feed on the top, so I'll check that when I get down, or I get it down. Done pretty much a bolt check all underneath the car, everything looks pretty good. Hopefully this bit of rubber fixes my tail shaft issue. Hopefully it doesn't work its way out, but I suppose it's just going to be a time will tell thing, and hopefully it shuts up that bit of a noise. Although I'm still pretty sure because of the misalignment, I'm still going to go through center bearings and uni joints faster than you normally would. A little bit of leak from the diff, but I'm not that worried about that. And yeah, obviously there's oil all underneath the car all the way down, you can probably tell. I've checked the gearbox. The gearbox is still full, so it might have just been a bit overfull. Might have just been squirting out the shifter hole and out of the breather. That's what the oil on the boot and the slave is. It's off the breather. I actually took this boot off yesterday. I had a look in the clutch. It's all dry in there, so there's no rear main leaks or anything like that. Everything's fine. All the bell housing bolts are good, so that's pretty much underneath the car done. So now it's just a matter of dropping back down, bleed up these brakes, and then just do a full bolt check from the top on the turbo and on the engine, and do the head bolts again, and then try and sort out this actuator. Righto guys, so I just pulled this actuator apart, had a look at the spring in it. From the eBay listings, from the colors they give, it seems to be like that. It would be a 0.8 bar spring, which would be pretty close to the boost that I want to run, providing that the wastegate board is adequate. If not, I've got a half bar spring, so that's about 7 psi. So pretty much at this point now, I've got the wastegate and everything off. This rod that I've got for the Kinagawa one is too short. It's also different threads. None of these actually fit properly, and I don't have any spare rods for it. So I went down and I went through some other actuators that I've got down there. So what I'm going to have to do is probably cut the threads off this. This is the actual rod I will use, and there is another one here. I'll put it in the vise ready to go. So that's the old actuator arm off an older actuator. So I'll cut that off as well, and it's going to have to be like a like this little bit of rod, plus a little threaded spacer and a lock nut, and then this on the end, and then that's going to have to go onto the rod for the Kinagawa one. So it's going to be a bit of a ghetto makeshift, make it happen, but I'll get it to work. It'll be alright. So anyway, pretty much now I'm just going to whack the front wheels probably back on this, and yeah, take it for a drive, and I'll find out whether this wastegate port with nothing attached to it, I'll just I'll block the reference up. I'll plug the reference so that it's plugged up, and I'll just leave no wastegate in it. So that will be all just open flap, and I'll go for a run down the road, see what sort of boost it makes. Because basically, if it makes any boost, then I'm going to be down that road of wastegate port is probably not adequate size. And if that's the case, I'll probably go for the 0.5 bar, because yeah, the half bar is about 7 pounds, so if it's going to spike, then it's going to probably spike to 10. So that would be better. But if it doesn't make any boost, well then that means the wastegate port's probably adequate, which means I can go for the 0.8 bar spring. So I need to do it while it's out of the car, because where this actuator actually sits once it's in there is right against power steering line. So to try and get that cap off and change the spring while it's in the car is just never going to be a thing. So Sort of need to figure it out before I go putting it in, so that I can just put it in once and that'll be that. So it's going to be a pain, because that means I've got to get it hot, and then it's going to be too hot to work on. I've got to come let it cool down while I do that. It's going to be a pain in the ass, but yeah, it is what it is. It's sort of got to happen. Also bled up my brakes. Yeah, they bled up really well. The pedal feels really, really good. I was a bit worried going to the bigger brakes that I'd lose some of that pedal feel, because one thing, basically the pedal feel on this car now is amazing. Even Rex helped me bleed him up that other night. He pointed out how nice the pedal feel was. I sort of just was under the impression that it was probably because I didn't go for the Z32 brakes this time round, which it probably has a lot to do with it. But even going to these bigger brakes, the pedal feel's still like really good. So I don't know, it's probably because probably has a lot to do with that brake master brace from RV Factory. Probably helps a lot. But yeah, the pedal feels really, really good. So they're all bled up, ready to go. So just chuck some wheels back on the front and go for a bit of a strap. What I might do actually first is I might do my bolt check first, because I'm gonna have to get it hot again. So while it's cool, I might go through doing my bolt check, and then yeah, go from there. So I've already done everything from underneath that I can get at. So I'll just do everything from the top, all of the manifold bolts, pull this cover off, do the head bolts, and just check all the bolts pretty much, make sure everything's tight, and that'll be that. I've actually just decided, screw it, I'm not going to bother with the head bolts. Couldn't be bothered. I'm sure they're fine. So the other thing is, they are, for anyone that remembers when I built it, they got that real weird shanked, the spline shank. I'm pretty sure they are a torque to yield bolt, so I'm sure that they will be fine. So I'm just going to leave the head bolts actually. I'm just going to check all the manifold bolts, block up this reference, go for a drive and see what it does. Alright guys, chuck the front wheels on, check the alignment. Seems good enough. I'm not really going to bother with it at the moment after doing those caster bushes. It's good enough to go for a strap and basically see how it steers at the track before I go making any more adjustments to it. Did a full bolt check. All of the exhaust manifold bolts, I got a little bit more out of them. Same with all the intake manifold bolts, got a little bit more out of them. There was one throttle body bolt that was actually quite loose. All four of the bolts on my dump flange, all four of them were loose, but and the turbo feed banjo bolt, I got a bit more out of that as well. But all of the bolts on the actual T3 flange on the turbo were fine. So it's pretty important to keep on top of this sort of stuff, especially with a fresh car that's been put together. Everything's getting heated and cooled all at the same time, all new, getting seated and that sort of thing. So especially with your exhaust manifold, that's stuff you really want to keep on top of quite often, because they do have a habit of, just because of the heat cycle, they just work their way loose. So pretty vigilant with all this sort of stuff, literally just because track time's expensive and I hate going to the track and having to fix your car. Not only that, I'm used to working in a place like this where we've been doing it for quite a while and we've accumulated enough stuff that there's not much here we don't need. If you need it, pretty much got it here. So I like to make sure I can just go to the track and drive. Don't like to be working my car at the track. So anyway, I've blocked off my reference port as good as I can. It's all right. It's got to be enough to tell the story anyway. So time to go for a bit of a drive with no wastegate actuator. I probably will do those head bolts one day. I'm just not going to bother with it right now because I'm starting to run out of time. But yeah, one day I will pull that cover off and actually do them head bolts again. Anyway, I'll go for a bit of a drive, see how it goes. Righto, so the good news, temps are good so far. Brakes are awesome, stops mint. But yeah, I did 2 runs up and down the road, and it was running at like 20 pound in second gear. So yeah, a bit not really what I was expecting. After those 2 runs, I decided to, because the wastegate reference, I decided to cut the zip tie off and just leave it open, see how much it bled off. And after that, it's again like sort of 15 pounds. So that's with absolutely no actuator on there at all. Yeah, and just that wastegate reference left open so it can bleed off a bit of boost. So yeah, bit odd, obviously. Very obviously, the problem is going to be the wastegate size. I'm going to have boost control issues with it. So pretty much have to try and sort out a way to port that wastegate hole. Anyway, at the moment, like even when it was boosting to 20, AFRs were still sweet. So it's still running all right. It's just that I don't think this head gasket and head bolts are going to hold 20 pound for very long. 15's more acceptable. I'm pretty happy to sort of drive it at 15. Like I know it's mapped, I know it'll run sweet. I'm pretty confident the head gasket and head bolts should be all right as long as it's not super long term. So I'm happy to drive it as it is for now, just with no wastegate at all. And running sort of that 15 pound. Obviously that's fully loaded up, you know, going loaded up. When you're turning tyres, it's not as loaded up. So that's probably why the other night I was only seeing sort of 17, because I was just turning tyres on the road here. I wasn't stabbing it, I was trying to sort of load it right up, and yeah, it was getting to 20 pounds. So I'm happy to drive it this week the way it is, but yeah, long term gonna have to sort out that wastegate port. I'm pretty confident it's not going to hurt the motor at all. The only thing it's really going to do is blow a head gasket, I believe, if it's going to do anything, because the motor's tuned mint, because yeah, Shane tuned it. So the tune's awesome, AFRs are good. I think only damage it's going to do, if it's going to do any damage, is pop a head gasket, which I've been very generous with the timing. So there's still no detonation. It's pretty safe. So pretty happy to drive it. I'm just going to have to be kind so I don't bend the gearbox. The other good thing is that tail shaft noise is gone. Taking off the tail shaft noise, that's all right. So yeah, I've got some stock RB25 rear housings and stuff down there. Actually, I can't really do that because I'm not sure if they'll fit over that turbine wheel. So I can't even just port one of them ready to go and swap it out. I'm actually going to have to port this housing probably, because I don't know whether this turbine wheel will fit in a stock 25 housing. So anyway, that's just going to have to be another day problem at this point. But anyway, I'm going to chuck the strut brace back in this, and a few other little things I want to do to it. And yeah, should be alright. Should be alright to send. I'm just going to have to be careful. So this is the caliper that has the actual handbrake thing on it, which I do have problems with it being sticky, so I just zip tied the arm right back so that it can't get stuck on accidentally. Not that I touch it anyway, but I just sort of think when it heats up and cools it might get a bit funny. I'm also still having issues with the hydro setup. Once it gets hot, it seems to sort of like to get a bit sticky, so it's just a consistent battle of letting it get hot and then adjusting the actual pin on the hydro master. But hopefully I've got it sorted now. Suppose we'll find out. But yeah, definitely one thing I've learnt there is to wait and adjust that pin on the hydro, wait until your brakes are hot and adjust it, because otherwise they just get hot and it creates a problem. So the other thing I do have for the car now, I've got some black 2.5 to 3 inch 90s. These are the ones I actually ordered before I put the blue ones on it, but they never came in time, so I do have them to swap out one day if I want to. And then I've got these are like just your little reservoir covers, stop reservoirs overfilling and basically expanding and leaking. So I've got a couple of them just to chuck on a few things, mainly for the hydro because it's inside the car. I don't want brake fluid all over my seat and carpet and stuff like that, so that's what I mainly bought them for, but I'll chuck one on the power steering and all that as well. And also got here a set of chrome door handles. Big thanks to Max Savage for sending these in. What an absolute legend. Good condition. I'm not going to get a chance to do these today, but definitely one day. Can't wait to put these chrome door handles on, sort of complete the chrome on the car. I reckon it'll be awesome. So massive thanks to Max Savage for sending those, plus he's got a rad name. Might be a bit biased, but I reckon that's just about one of the coolest names ever. Alrighty, so you can see how those little sock cover things work. You just go over your reservoir and stop overflow pretty much. So that was the most important one there that I wanted it for. I really don't want that brake fluid all over my crap in there. Also decided if I'm going to send it at 15 psi, whatever boost it's going to be running, I thought I probably should do these head belts. So I've pulled the cover off and I'm just going to go back, same sequence, torque these back down to, I think it was 65 foot-pounds. I'll have to double check, but I'll go back and double check what I did them to. I think it was 65, and I'm just going to re-torque them down in the same sequence, just to make sure. Rightio, all sorted, all just re-torqued to 65 foot-pounds. All of them are fine, none of them moved at all, so that's alright. I just wanted to make sure. So, cover can go back on, and the strut brace can go back on, and then 31's pretty much ready to rip again. Yeah, so just send it like that at that boost pressure, and hopefully everything runs okay. Should be alright. I'm pretty confident it should be fine. Like the last motor ran that much boost, and it never had an issue. It just had stock head gasket and bolts as well. So I think provided the tune's good, we've been pretty generous with the timing. There's no ping, there's no detonation. I think it should be fine to run it like that. I'm just gonna have to be pretty kind to the gearbox. But yeah, that'll do for now until I can have enough time to actually pull this turbo back off and try and port that wastegate port open a bit. for now, that's going to do.
Alrighty, and we're all back together, ready to rip. So this is just going to be how I'm going to drive it for hopefully these 3 drift days this week. And then I'll have to look into getting some new gaskets so that I can pull that turbo off and try and sort out that wastegate port, because ideally I would like to get this thing back down to 10 pound. But anyway, it's just going to have to be one of those things. Pull it off and have a look. I wish I had that information, or knew that before I put the turbo on there, to check that wastegate port to see if I could port it. But big thank you to White is Wiring for bringing that to my attention, because I don't know if I would have thought of that or not. But anyway, that's good. So we're all good. Pretty much all I've got to do now, I've got to rewire the trailer plug on the Falcon, because the trailer lights are trash, like they hardly ever work. So it's an issue with the actual plug on the Falcon, so I'm not going to make any footage of that because it's pretty damn boring. I just got a new actual steel 7-pin round plug to wire onto it, and hopefully that should be sweet after that. So just going to do that and then load up, take the car back to the coast, and then this week I'll hopefully be hitting some tracks and doing some drifting. So thanks for watching as always, guys, and keep peeled for some drifting content very soon.